Could Catalonia again try to secede from Spain? Regional elections have given separatists an increased majority, but parties that favor staying also made a strong showing. So could this lead to more political chaos? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. It's been a turbulent 3 years since Catalonia tried to secede from Spain. The government in Madrid hadn't authorized the referendum organized by regional leaders in Barcelona and afterwards charged them with sedition. Many fled into exile. But the issue hasn't gone away and was a major focus of Sunday's regional election. 3 separatist parties won enough votes to increase their majority in parliament. But the Catalan branch of Spain's ruling Socialists also won more seats. And the far right is set to enter the regional legislature for the first time. Fintan Monahan reports.
Separatist parties in Catalonia are hailing the vote as a major victory. With the strengthened majority in the region's parliament, many of the movement's leaders say the case for secession from Spain has never been stronger.
I would like to send a message to European authorities. The results are clear. We, the Proindependence parties, have a majority. We have reached more than 50% of the popular vote. The Catalan people have spoken. The time has come to negotiate a referendum of self-determination. Please get involved.
The separatist cause made international headlines in 2017 when a referendum was held on breaking away from Spain. It wasn't sanctioned or recognized by Madrid and wasn't legal under Spanish law. The central government moved against the referendum's organizers, many of whom fled into exile, where they remain. Since then, political power has shifted in Madrid. But the current socialist prime minister is just as opposed to Catalan independence as his conservative predecessor. The latest election result in Catalonia has put the fate of the region back on the agenda.
I'm happy independence has the majority. We are all together and I hope we'll come to make an agreement to make a path together.
It makes me happy that the total votes in favour of pro-independence options has surpassed 50%. There are not only Catalan pro-independence people, but more people in favour of a referendum. These things, I believe, help us advance in terms of democracy and conflict solving.
While the gains by separatist parties are undisputed, this was an unusual election. The pandemic may have contributed to an extremely low turnout. Only 53% of Catalans cast their vote, compared to 79% in 2017. And the election also saw big gains by the Socialists and the far-right Vox party. Both are opposed to secession. Fintan Monahan for Inside Story.
All right, let's bring in our guests in Barcelona. Aguilera Vaqués, Professor of Constitutional Law at Barcelona University. In Brussels, Pieter Cleppe, an EU policy analyst. And in Madrid, Cristina Manzano, Editor-in-Chief of Esglobal and columnist at El País. Welcome to the program. Mar, let me start with you today. Overall, what do the results of this election tell us?
Well, overall, I think that these results, especially from Catalonia, what they tell us is that the blocks didn't move, which means that we still have 2 blocks. Voters didn't go from one block to another. So that means that we still have the question on the table. So that means that also that we really need to talk about which should be the best solution for the Catalan question, because many people voted for independence, although the turnout was not very high. But if we look at the results, we can read from the results that we still need to talk and we still have a question on the table. And then on the other hand, we have the issue of the extreme right party who has entered the Catalan parliament. And this is a big concern too.
Cristina, Mar just brought up something I wanted to ask you about, which is the fact that the far-right Vox party is going to be entering Catalonia's regional parliament for the first time, having won 11 seats. Vox is pro-union with Spain. How is that going to play, from your perspective, into the secessionist narrative in Catalonia, and how popular has Vox become in Spain?
It is hard to answer in global terms. I think Vox did very well because they could gather all the votes aiming for just the union with Spain as such, in a very simplistic terms, if you allow me, which means also anti-Catalan sentiments. I don't think their political proposals will move much further. I think they will make a lot of noise. That's what they do very well. They know how to grapple the attention of all the public opinion, but I don't see them being a very strong political actor in the parliament with a lot of proposals, or it is an anti-political force. I assume it will be in Catalonia, as it is sometimes also in Spain. It is very worrying in any case that in Spain, which hadn't had a right-wing extremist party until recently, it is very worrying that they are moving so quickly, and they have done so precisely based on this anti-Catalan, anti-separatist sentiment all throughout Spain.
Pieter, the fact that pro-independence parties have won more than 50% of the vote for the first time, how significant is that?
Well, I think it's very important, and I think it's mainly a confirmation of the fact that there's strong sentiment in Catalan society to gain a lot more self-control or even independence. So I think that's an important political fact, and we should really abandon all pretense that this would not be existent or that this would actually only be a fringe movement. I mean, it is very, very present in Catalonia. But secondly, I think we also, for any solution, would need to appreciate that no matter how you look at it, a sizable minority, at least, of people living in Catalonia are against independence. So I always say, to reconcile that, the obvious solution is Switzerland, which is a very successful decentralized country. And I think the Spanish government, maybe they should not invite the Swiss government to actually mediate, which the Swiss government has proposed a few years ago, but they should definitely take the Swiss model very serious and abandon the strategy of basically looking away and hoping that the problem will go away, because the problem will not go away. Now, in practice, what could be done? I would say one step in the right direction would be to grant Catalonia the same taxation powers that also Basque country has, and why not all the regions in Spain? So I think this would be, let's say, a wise compromise, and at least for supporters of independence, they should see that as a big step forward.
Mar, I saw you reacting to some of what Pieter was saying there. Did you want to add to the point he was making?
Yes, I think it's still on the table. I actually agree with both, with what Cristina Manzano said and also Pieter. And yeah, I totally agree. Like, it will be on the table, especially with the fact that we have our Catalan leaders, even though you voted for them or not, they are in jail. They are outside Spain. For some, they are fugitives. For others, they are in exile. So at the end of the day, 4 of our last presidents were ousted from power. And if you say, okay, there were reasons and everything, but at the end of the day, there was never violence here in Catalonia, and we still have our Catalan leaders in jail. So it has, apart from the tax issues, which many people is defending, we also have the emotional situation that many people think that we are not treated as we should, or we need more autonomy or more independence. And the polls show also that many people is for a referendum. So we can check how many of us want to stay with Spain and how many want to leave. And why not? Why not another proposal, as Pieter was saying, maybe a solution like Switzerland has, or independence, or a federation. So there are many solutions, but for this we need to talk. We need to have a proposal from the Spanish and the Catalan government. And of course, if we don't talk, if we don't ask people what they want, even though this is not within the Constitution, which is true, it's not within the Constitution, But if you want a solution, you have to find a way to talk and to find this solution, because if not, it will stay on the table forever.
Cristina, I saw you nodding to some of what Mar was saying there, so I want to get your reaction to what she was saying. And I also want to ask you, what is the response to the results of these elections from the rest of the country?
From where?
From the rest of the country.
From the rest of Spain?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, let me go back to St. Peter's comment first, because it is true that in terms of seats in the parliament, the independent, pro-independence parties have won more than the majority, a little bit more than the majority. But in terms of votes, at the end, the small turnout, around 53%, means that only 25% of the people that are in the census in Catalonia, the people that are able to vote, have opted for a pro-independence vote. So this, one of the lessons of these results, I think, is that it cannot be taken as a plebiscite. Every election in Catalonia for the last years have intended to be a plebiscite on the independence issue. And I think with 25% of the population which can vote, going for that solution, I don't think it's enough to take such an important decision for Catalonia and for the rest of the country. It is true that many solutions are on the table, and it is also true that we are playing with emotional issues here. And if you see it from a rational point of view, there are not so many arguments that could push for an independent position, because really it doesn't play well, for instance, in terms of the economy. Another thing is taxes, and I'll go to there now. But let's not forget that this situation in the last years have taken more than 4,000 companies, businesses, to go out of Catalonia because of the uncertainty. So I think it's also something to take into account. I think the federal solution, and going back to what Pieter and Mar were saying, could be to have that all the regions in Spain, all the comunidades autónomas that we call now, have exactly the same rights. And in that sense, I wouldn't like the Catalonia going towards a similar solution as in the Basque Country, but because that is an anomaly. Also, that is a difference towards the rest of Spain. How these results have been taken in the rest of Spain, this with a bit of how can I say, people are a bit tired of the Catalan issue, since the results have not been so different, because they don't really solve anything clearly in the very first moment. We are bound to have very intense negotiations from now on. I think it's okay, it's over, and now let's focus on the pandemic, which is our first and major issue right now.
Pieter, from your vantage point, is it likely that separatist parties will now ask Madrid for a referendum?
It's looking likely indeed. And then the question is how Madrid will react to that. I suspect that, like in the past, Madrid will say, well, we cannot actually grant a referendum because the Spanish constitution forbids it. But apparently, at least according to some legal scholars, an advisory referendum could definitely be granted. The question is, will that be enough for the independence movement? Frankly, I think even if a majority votes for independence in a non-binding referendum, you still need to change the Spanish constitution and everything to do it legally. And even if you can do all that, the fact remains that a large minority in Catalonia will not be happy. So personally, I think it's better to go for a gradual approach. And as I mentioned, this definitely means that we should stop pretending that, or Madrid should stop pretending that there is no such thing as an independence movement. It's there. It has large support in society. And also, indeed, when talking about giving them the same rights as the Basques, you could say, indeed, there's no reason why Extremadura then, for a poorer Spanish region, should not get the same taxation powers. In effect, I think that's one of the strengths of the Swiss model. That's one of the reasons why Switzerland is such a wealthy country, because poorer regions can actually outcompete others by reducing taxes, by offering an attractive environment to invest rather than relying on transfers, because transfers, of course, as we have seen, not only in Spain, but in Italy, my own country, Belgium, even in Germany, are a terrible method of boosting development. So you could argue, if you really care about Spain and making Spain economically stronger, you need to go for economic decentralization.
Mar, let me ask you, how much is all this going to affect the trajectory of the pro-secession movement in the years to come?
Well, actually, they haven't moved much. The difference is that they have divided themselves, and there are many different tendencies. As Pieter was saying, it's true that many people in Spain is tired of what's happening in Catalonia. But in Catalonia, people is also tired of the situation, of course, because we need a response. And there are many people who are independentists. There are many people who are not. And as we were saying here, which would be the best solution? I think it's in another step, like if it's good or not to be independent from Spain. This should be a debate that once we are here, once we are discussing if Catalonia wants to be in Spain as now, as an autonomous community, or as a region, or as a canton like in Switzerland, or as a land, as a federation, a real federation, not like now. Because here we have Article 155, which was imposed in Catalonia. So this would be another discussion further on time. But right now, what most of the independentist parties are asking for is for a consultation, even if it's not binding. And of course, you might ask, why do you want to do a consultation which is not a referendum if it's not binding? Of course, it's for political reasons. Of course, it's for negotiation. I was in East Timor in 1999, and it was a consultation. I was there with the United Nations, and it was not binding, the East Timor referendum in 1999. But still, it had the political power. So I think from here, from Catalonia, what people want, many people want, it's a consultation on the topic. That doesn't mean that we will end up being independent or this will be the solution. And I think most of the people, what we want, at least myself or many people, is that we have a solution. We talk about it. People, that there is a real consultation. And I think if Spain plays it well, if the rest of Spain, if the government of Spain, of course, because Catalonia is part of Spain, if the rest of Spain, the government of Spain plays it well, it will be a good response. And they did in the UK with Scotland. And also about the threshold, if there was the turnout during the election day here in Catalonia last Sunday, yeah, it was a low turnout, but nothing points out at the fact that the ones that didn't turn out were voting for unity. So, and we had other elections with low turnout, and no one questioned these other elections. And also here from the Catalan government, they tried to postpone the elections, but the Catalan Supreme Court said that this was against the Constitution and the right to vote. So we have many discussions going on here. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with one or the other, but I think the rest of Spain and also the European Union should be aware of the fact that there are big debates regarding the independence of Catalonia or the organization of the Catalan situation.
Cristina, let me also ask you about the issue of turnout, because as Mar mentioned, turnout for this election was far lower than it was in 2017. You mentioned a few minutes ago the concern that's growing throughout the country because of COVID-19, because of the pandemic. From your point of view, was the low turnout mostly because of fears of contracting the virus, or were there other underlying issues?
I think both. There was, of course, fear of the virus, but we can all say, I think, it was the election was very well organized. We've seen how civic the population of Catalonia has been, how everyone was keeping all the measures and so on. So there was no just a real justification for not going to vote just for COVID-19. And also we have a very good postal system for voting, so that wouldn't be an excuse. you see there. I think there is been a lack of mobilization on both sides, and there I completely agree with Mar. It's been less participation on the pro-independent side, but also and mostly from the other side. Going back to figures, the total support of pro-independent parties have got 600,000 less votes than in the previous elections. That is what reflects this lack of mobilization also in the pro-independence side, which is always more likely to go to the polls and to reflect their vote.
Pieter, what's the immediate impact of these election results? I mean, how long is it going to take negotiations now to try to form a government? How messy could this become? Or is it going to be relatively easy?
Well, the interesting thing is that one of the likely government parties, ERC, is actually holds the keys to power or holds the balance of power in Madrid. It's very important for the government of Pedro Sanchez. So I can imagine that this party will tell Sanchez, look, we want A, B, and C, and otherwise we will no longer support you. So that indeed may have some repercussions on the stability of the Spanish government, the central government in Madrid. I think from outside of Spain, investors, the European Union, other European capitals, they basically will wait and see what happens. I have the impression that the current government is more open to engage with the Catalan nationalists than its predecessors, its conservative predecessors. But we'll have to see in practice if they actually are willing to make some material concessions. I do think that it's a wise thing for foreign entities and countries to stay out of this. I don't think the EU should side with anyone in this debate. Of course, the EU should give honest responses when people ask, okay, can Catalonia join the EU right away? But the answer is very simple. Some arrangement with Spain will need to be found, no matter what happens. So it's incredibly important that both sides talk and sit together and appreciate each other's point of view, not trying to deny the sentiment in Catalonia, not trying to deny that some Catalans do not want to be independent, and try to find at least a middle way. And perhaps if you're a Catalan nationalist, you can say, look, maybe in 15 years we can get real independence, but now this is a very satisfying solution.
Mar, let me ask you, what do you think is going to happen going forward when it comes to the negotiations? And also, are you concerned that the region's parliament is only going to become more fragmented?
Well, regarding independence, I'm not totally sure, but what I saw from one of the readings from these elections is that in both blocs, the parties that got more votes were the ones that were more for negotiation, like the Socialist Party in the side of Spain and the Spanish government, not Spain, because Catalonia is part of Spain, but in the side of the Spanish government, and in Catalonia, ERC, Esquerra Republicana. And both are the ones that have already start the negotiation. They started to talk. So this is, and most probably ERC will have the presidency of the Catalan government. They will be the party with the presidency, so the head of the government. But together with them, they will have other independentist parties maybe, or the Socialist Party. But before the elections, they already said that they will not make an agreement with to have a government with the Socialist Party, because they accuse the Socialist Party of voting for Article 155, which was the article of the Spanish Constitution that took us, that removed the Catalan autonomy. So I think the parliament will be, it is very divided, but still we will have a government.
All right, we're going to have to leave the discussion there because we've run out of time. Thank you so much to all of our guests, Mar Aguilera Vaqués, Pieter Cleppe, and Cristina Manzano. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammed Jamjoom, and the whole team here, bye for now.